Talk. This is going to be a video on the real estate investing education timeline. I wonder if my friend Joe Kuhn would make one like this on stocks. And the goal for this video is not to say that if somebody asks a question that I think of them as kindergartners or as somebody in elementary school. I'm just going to use the K through 12 version of education to kind of relate, where I categorize people when they're asking questions about real estate. And this is in the BiggerPockets forums, the One Rental at a Time group, or when I'm at a local meetup and there's somebody who asks a question. An example is if you start talking about retirement and you ask somebody, how much do you need to retire? And they say an amount, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, anything like that, that they think of a number, they've just started thinking about retirement. They don't realize that retirement is about a monthly amount of income that you don't have to work for. When it comes to real estate, there are some questions that people ask that tell me how far they are in the real estate investing education timeline, which is a mouthful and barely fit into the title for this video. This is going to be a short video on my phone where I might not see all of the comments that come by. If you want your questions answered during a live stream every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I answer all of the questions that come in, even the rude ones. So when someone asks the first question, so I'm in a Facebook group or I'm at a social meeting where real estate's the topic. I try not to do that everywhere I go. But when somebody asks the question, this is what tells me that they're in this kindergarten stage of looking at rentals. This is not a bad question. This just tells me how they're looking at it. It means they really haven't started the process of learning how real estate works yet, as far as rental properties go, which is how I retired in 2022 after 12 years of investing, was owning rental properties. And there was probably a point in time where I would have asked the same question. But this kindergarten question is, how many doors do you have? One of the first questions. Right? They're going to say, well, how many doors do you have if you invest in real estate, right? You want to know that who you're talking to is worth listening to. And so if you're brand new and you ask that question and somebody says, I have 5 doors, and somebody says, I have 50 doors. When you're brand new, you think, well, this 50-door person's doing way better. Right? This person only has 5. This person has 50. How many doors do you have? Kindergarten question. What if these investors are losing $100 a door per month? This means this person's only losing $500 a month and this person's losing $5,000 a month. Now all of a sudden the 5 person is doing better. So the kindergarten question is bragging rights. How many doors do you have? So people will invest in syndication so they can put down $10,000 on a deal that's going to buy 1,000 doors, and they own like 0.1%, but they can go, I own 1,000 doors in real estate. Are they making any money? That doesn't tell us anything. So brand new person starts with, how many doors do you have? When they move on to the elementary school, and you learn that there are both positive and negative integers when you get around this 5th, 6th grade thing here, you got to understand, okay, well, maybe how many doors you have doesn't matter as much as this is the question. This is the most commonly asked question in real estate when it comes to rental properties. So yeah, people ask how many doors you have, but this question gets asked way more. Also doesn't tell you anything about the person's portfolio or their investment. Doesn't help you make a decision on if it's a good deal to buy or not. People will ask, how much money do you make per door? Now this would tell you if they make $100 a door, that the 50 is making more money than the 5. If they're losing $100 a door, it tells you the 5 is doing better than the 50. So how much money per door? This is an elementary question. The idea is we start to understand that rentals have cash flow. And at this point, you might actually get educated and learn what cash flow is. It's not just all the money coming in. They're not making $100 a door. They're making $1,000, and then they have to pay the mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. They have to pay maybe property management and HOA if they bought a really bad rental. All of these things, the money coming in and the money going out leaves you cash flow, including, this is where the education part comes in, you have to set aside money for future expenses. So I set aside 15% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancies. If I had a property with $1,000 coming in, $150 would be set aside into an account for future repairs. I'd pay the mortgage. What I'd have left would be that $100 I'm making a door. So you learn that in this page right here. But in elementary school, when you're at this stage of the timeline of real estate investing education, you don't know if that's a good deal or not. Because what if you use a first-time homebuyer program and you put down $0, like I did on my first house. I didn't use my VA loan. It was just a first-time homebuyer program that came out. And I walked away from the closing table with some money. It didn't cost me anything to buy the house, right? There's no money down, zero into it. And then you rent it out and you make that $100 a month, right? You live there for a year, you move out, now it's a rental, and say you make $100 a month. That's an infinite return. You got zero out of pocket, you're making $100 a month. This is why people talk about the BRRRR method so much, because you try to get it to where you have no money in the deal, but you're making some. Well, if you're making $100 a door, what if, and I'm going to do this with zeros so that it's clearly indicated here, what if you invest $1 billion to make $100 a month? Is that a good deal? No. So this is when you go from the elementary school to high school, this is where you start understanding how math works. You need to know what your yield is, right? If you're into economics, it's yield. If you're into real estate, we call this our cash on cash return on investment. Your Cockroy. I don't know how to say that as an acronym, but your cash on cash return on investment. In high school, we learned if I invest $100,000 to buy a duplex, which is pretty much what I did in 2021, if you make $10,000 in profit, right? What's left at there, all expenses and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, you have a 10% return. If you make $20,000 in profit, you have a 20% return. So this ends up being annual profit. That's all money coming in, not just all rents, but all money coming in minus your expenses, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, anything else, HOA, whatever your expenses are, you take it out. What's left is your annual profit. You want to divide that by your cost to acquire. And a lot of people think cost to acquire is your down payment. That's part of it. Your cost to acquire is all of the money it took to acquire the property. Down payment, closing costs, right? You got to pay for appraisal and inspection, title, there might be other expenses. And then you have to have money for immediate repairs, right? You don't usually buy a rental. I try to buy rent ready or already occupied, but even then I've got to spend a couple $1,000s putting in coated locks, motion sensor LED lights, and then maybe some repairs from the home inspection that we found. So your cost to acquire is down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs. You divide your annual profit by your cost to acquire. Get your yield. This is where almost everybody stops. This is where they get stuck. You can't graduate high school until you get the math down. You have to learn the math. This is very important. Don't practice the math until you get it right. Practice the math until you can't get it wrong. To start this, if you're really brand new, I would reach out in a local investor meetup or find one of the local investors in maybe your Facebook groups and say, can I run the numbers on your deals? Like they have a known return. You want to run the numbers, purchase price. They might not give you exact details, but try to see how close you can come and then let them point out that something like, oh, you missed that in this state, we have to have flood insurance because of the sea level in Florida or whatever else is going on, or in this state, taxes reset every year, right? Whatever there is, something your local investor might point out that you're missing. You practice that over and over and over until you learn this skill, and then you take the skill, because once you graduate high school, this is where all through this process, I would say don't buy a rental. Because while math is important, it's this much of the equation. Again, practice until you can't get it wrong. That's very important. It's not like math doesn't matter because it's a small part of the equation. But when you graduate high school, you go out into the real world. And when you graduate high school, this is when we realize your grades were important for school, but do they really matter in the real world? Right? You've got choices like, do I join the military? Do I go to college? Do I go to a trade school? Do I get married? Or am I smart? Do I get a job? Do I start a career? You've got all of these options that you go through where the grades can contribute, right? You join the military, your grades might tell you if you want to be a Marine or in the Air Force. It might tell you what MOS might best suit you. It can contribute to the decision, but it doesn't tell you which way to go. So if you find the math and the math is right and you get the yield, now out here you've got the market. In your market, for your property, are there enough economic drivers, sources of tenants, like a bay support, a college, hospital, Boeing, Amazon, large population, or something like that, where if you have a tenant turnover, you're going to have enough people to fill your space? Is the population growing or shrinking? What's the crime like there? What are the specific things in that market, like the insurance, like the taxes resetting, that can affect your asset? After that, then you've got the actual property itself. I specifically like to invest for long-term, low turnover tenants because it's easy, and I'm the lazy person that was working full-time raising 3 kids when I started investing. Now I want to travel and scuba dive. I don't want to spend all the time managing my properties. So I bought properties that help limit tenant turnover and make managing them easier. I looked for properties that have washer dryer hookups because people using shared laundry or laundromat are just waiting for the next place to open. I look for places that have pet-friendly fenced yards because people with pets don't like to move. I want at least 2 bedrooms and a garage because more space means more stuff, less likely to move, right? I buy properties side by side, small multifamily instead of over under, not my preference. I'm probably going to sell the one over under that I have eventually. So how does the property match what you're doing? How does the market? This is why I chose specifically a high cost of living area because I wanted the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. So in a lower cost of living area, I would have needed more rentals to get the cash flow that I have. And then the last thing you have to do is think of your strategy. How does this property in the right market match what you want to do? Right? If you want to do storage, does anything I say about small multifamily properties match your storage needs? No, it's parking, access, advertising. If you are like my friend Chester, and I'm going to call him a friend, we've interacted for years, we've had some actually off-camera conversations. For the first couple of years of his investing, he knew the math. He got this down and he got stuck in the spreadsheet right here where he wanted in his market with his property type to do rent by the room. And we had several conversations in the members groups. We looked at several deals for Chester and he went, this deal looks good. It's got 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. It's really close to matching my rent by the room strategy. And then something like, well, there's no parking would blow it up. And so he did the research on this. He learned all the skills, and it was a lot easier for him to take I understand the math. He learned a market, picked properties that matched a new strategy, and he closed on a property. He owns his first rental because he graduated. He went out here and made the choices that all lined up. He didn't lower his criteria to finally get the property type in the market he wanted that didn't match his strategy and would have blown up in his face. Once you learn all of the math, that's when you can go out here and actually start making decisions on how to invest in real estate. And the reason I wanted to make this video isn't so much to say, hey, this is how you go out, choose a market, choose a property, choose a strategy. I wanted you to understand the investing in real estate education timeline. Because when you are like Chester, thank you for the super chat, I appreciate that, and you own a rental, and someone comes to you because you're now the person who has some experience, they start asking, how many doors do you have? Oh, they're just starting. Well, how much do you make per door? They might not understand cash on cash, return on investment. What is your yield? They're focused on math. They've got to high school. This is now when we can start looking at, maybe it's time to talk about what is your strategy? How do you pick a market, right? Everybody goes through this. Some people it takes a couple of weeks, and some people it takes 10, 15 years. And a lot of people, I think, are stuck right here before kindergarten and they never invest in real estate at all. I never think about any of these questions. But this is for the person who is reaching financial freedom, on the journey to financial freedom, and wants to share the information with that new investor. This helps you determine where they are at on their journey. Again, if you want your questions answered on Tuesday at 4 o'clock Pacific, the live streams generally last as long as the questions do. And in this video, I was thinking about making a salt, but I decided, nah,